Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, Activators? And welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and here with me every single week is...
It's me, Sam Frost. Hello.
There you go. The reason we're giggling is I did a thing for the YouTubers, and I'm not going to say any more than that. So if you want to hop over and see what I did, it will largely be underwhelming if you're making me to hop off of whatever device you're listening to type in Activated Authors on YouTube just to see what I did. But I feel like now I've said that, that's probably sparkled even more curiosity. So
maybe we'll see.
Yes, Sam, you
can't better go up.
You have a pumpkin on your mug.
I do have a pumpkin on my mug.
It's a bad
know this. We've got, well, I was going to say matching mugs, but we don't have matching mugs because that's no. But we've both got pumpkin mugs, and I'm just gently fingering this pumpkin's eye for some reason.
I think, and it's quite an optimistic thought.
Yeah. One
day we will avoid some form of innuendo within the first 30 seconds of this show.
Dad, you've met me, right?
Once. Shudders. How's your week been, Sam?
Well, it was fine. As in, if we're talking about this week, as in it's Monday today, last week was fucking horrendous.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it, you know those days where, like, tiny little things keep going wrong, and so by the end of the day, like, you've been worn down by the leaky tap of life.
Yeah.
Last week wasn't like that. Last week, just massive fucking shitstorms hit most days.
Just getting waterboarded by Sprite.
Sprite. Not sponsored or affiliated with Sprite or the Coca-Cola company.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
I had a horrendous mental health day. Like, I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to, like, accidentally trigger anybody, but I had a little accident and it fully, like, flared my old demons, and I really struggled. That day was really, really difficult. I had to hide knives from myself. Thankfully, you were with me last week.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I have taught myself to do in those kind of situations is the second I feel like I'm either unsafe or I want to do something, I text Dan, and I also text Rob. I might text my sister if I feel like she's in a place to handle it as well, because the minute I tell people about it, it takes away the secrecy of it, which is, for me, a big part of it. I don't want people to know. So that way it kind of removes any way of hiding it. So that's one of my coping mechanisms for that.
And also, just not to kind of take away from that, but also just a great lesson in, like, a lot of stuff. Like, when I stopped hiding things in the past, even just small little secrets and things, and you become more honest with yourself and those around you, you find that it's easier to find people that actually accept who you are, which therefore strengthens yourself as a person.
Yeah.
That can be applied to, like, lots of things.
It's like Brene Brown says about shame. Like, shame can only survive in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Gary Vee calls it poison.
Yeah.
Every lie that you tell is a poison inside you that just festers and hurts you.
Yeah. So I now, I wasn't originally, but I'm now in the fortunate place that I have a very small but, like, rock solid inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I alerted the media meaning you and Rob,
Yeah.
about what was going on, and that kind of, it kept me safe during the day, even when, you know, I wasn't good. And then the following day I found out, and I'm not gonna, because I don't want to make it about me, so I'm not going to say who, but I found out that a friend of mine had passed away the week before, and that literally like knocked me on my ass. Because they were younger than me, for one, and just I wasn't like it, you know, we always think we've got more time, all of the, you know, cliches, but it really, like, I don't know how to explain what happened to me when that news hit. And yeah, it was really fucking difficult, and it kind of really skewed my ability to kind of do anything or see anything for the rest of the week. And you know, then there were the other more kind of the smaller shitstorms, you know, being a parent and having to navigate a teenage boy and all of that kind of stuff. But those two things really, like, my week, it was not great, actually.
Turbulent.
Yeah, that was a really long answer. I'm so sorry. How was your week?
The opposite of taciturn. We'll come on to why that's relevant in a minute. Yeah, my week, I mean, I don't know, like, it's all over the place at the minute, but like in positive ways, like I'm still very much in the midst of like a lot of personal stuff, which is
bullshit.
It's bullshit. It's draining. It is currently what it is. But the thing that I'm sort of most proud of is that I am continuing to try and do the things to put me in the best headspace that I possibly can. And so, for example, like yesterday was just, I'm just going to be a slob all day, you know.
Yeah.
And I did. And it was one of those where, like, for people that are unaware, I'm currently living back with my parents because of some of this personal situation. And it's really difficult when you're 32 to just slob in bed and just chill all day, because you have your parents that appear in the doorway. Are you okay? Or you're gonna get up at some point today? All those kind of things. And like having to like explain, I'm an adult, I need this, I've been busy all week, and just because this is what you're seeing of me doesn't mean that this is how I am all the time. Like sometimes you just need those days.
Yeah, absolutely, you need those days.
And so I watched a lot of TV, I played a lot of video games and things, but I'm also doing a lot of exercise and well-being stuff at the minute. So as mentioned last week, I'm working again with my sister from Food Freedom with Becca. That's the show notes, but she's a qualified nutritionist and she does a lot of stuff to help people. I mean,
she's awesome. Honestly.
She's awesome.
As someone that it isn't my sister, like I've worked with her, and like there is nothing, like she's just compassion is the best way for me to describe, like
compassion Dan.
Rude but true. She is you, but a petite ginger version.
Yeah.
And you know, a lady.
Yeah. And she is fantastic. And you know, a big chunk of what she does, not surprisingly, is mindset around food and nutrition, and this whole label of like good foods and bad foods. And the whole purpose of freedom, food freedom, is understanding that you can lose weight, you can reach the goals while still enjoying the things that you enjoy. And just so much of everything we know, this is mindset. But yeah, I'm working with her, doing some pieces to help my nutrition. I am running somewhat regularly and building that up again, which is nice on my part. I did a run this morning that was mentally difficult, but as always, you feel good when you reach the end of it. And I'm in a weird space in which I'm kind of got a lot of things that I'm working on, but I'm not putting pressure on deadlines. I'm just enjoying the process of stuff. So I have about
gorgeous.
Yeah, I have about 3 or 4 different books in different stages on the go. And I'm enjoying it. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the minute. It's positive. I've got some things that I'll be announcing soon that'll be coming out through Activated Authors, which is very exciting. I do want to say, just for the people, because we've got loads of people in this activated
Yeah, we
Discord
do.
now. It's amazing. If you're not yet part of it and you're listening to this podcast and you enjoyed this podcast and you want to see more of me and Sam, but also just find a compassionate group of loads of different authors who get the activated authors message and have joined us for that very purpose.
Yeah.
You can jump into our Discord absolutely free. There's a whole list of channels for different things to help you with your different stages of the author business. But I do just want to say as well, for the people that are in the Plus membership, in which they get like live weekly writing sprints and all this extra stuff, just a thank you for your patience with me so far. I still have an indefinite at this point amount of time to sort out the things that are personal, but I will say they potentially involve court and stuff, which kind of shows the heaviness of what's currently happening.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah. But just thank you for your patience and for the well wishes and for people who are reaching out and just kind of checking in. Like, I do really, really appreciate it. And I definitely haven't forgotten about you guys. Like, I do silently check into the Discord every day just to see what's going on. And you guys rock. So yeah, big thank you for that. Outside of that stuff, in terms of activated authors business, I've got a list of stuff.
Hold.
Oh, don't do the new thing yet, because that's later.
That's not what I was going to do.
Okay.
Not what I was going to do. I didn't realize you were moving on. So just before you do.
Oh no, she cleared her throat for this.
Yeah, I did. I just want to say, as someone that has had the privilege of knowing you for coming on 3 years now, that I am really proud of like how far you have come in the sense of looking after yourself. I know it was a difficult time, obviously, when I first got to know you, because it was the pandemic. Like, nothing was normal. No one knew how to look after themselves in that fucking situation. Yeah. Not COVID. But like, just seeing that kind of journey you've been going on of peeling back and then, you know, trying to reestablish some equilibrium, and then like the pendulum swinging a little bit too far one way or the other, and constantly keep going. I'm just incredibly proud of you. And, you know, with all of this nutrition and exercise stuff at the moment and mindset, I'm insanely proud of you as well, because I know how difficult it is when you've been out of something to get back into it. Especially for some reason, food and exercise, we really do seem to like have a block in our minds. And just also one last thing, just the integrity that you have like held yourself with during all of this shit. I'm super proud of you.
Yeah, it's a fun ride, guys, and I really wish that I could say more. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for this week, because I could go on endlessly about a lot of stuff, but I'll turn and become maybe a bit more taciturn.
For God's sake.
So just a couple of extra things that I've got down here to note is just a reminder that there are a bunch of free resources for you guys on activatedauthors.com. So up on the top of the website, you can click free resources, and we've got the Activated Authors Matrix. We have a self-publishing checklist, and that'll be growing as the months go by with some extra free stuff. Got some stuff in the works at the minute. Also, a few more Activated Authors books are on their way, which is quite exciting. So I'm working on one at the minute, and I'm done with secrets. I'm working on one at the minute, which is all about how to write a book. I've got one coming up all about marketing books. I'll keep you posted as they come. And then we're still working through flash fiction anthology submissions.
There's so many.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, they wouldn't have taken as long as they are if life hadn't intervened over the last few months. So again,
but like how?
I know,
you've been fine, and I've been so well.
Yeah. So again, thank you for your patience with that. And we are rolling through them, hoping to have a lot of that wrapped up in the next sort of month or so.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on your inboxes for that stuff as we start to digest them and put them into some kind of working order for the Bolts of Fiction anthology. And then the last thing I'll say as well, because I realize it's quite a long intro, today I will be uploading to the Amazon dashboard my first book in quite a while, which I'm very excited for. It's the fiction book. It is the written version of the Dream audio story that's coming out on the podcast, but the book will also be released on Halloween as well, so I'm quite excited to get back to the dashboard and post something up on there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the paper back in its full glory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hey, so I've nattered on plenty. What's something you've enjoyed this week?
So, two things. One is very brief, and one is like more substantial. So what I am currently enjoying is the fact that slowly and steadily, like the waves coming in on the beach, autumn is arriving.
Oh, yes.
And I am a northerner, so I am not made for heat. I enjoy looking at pictures of the sun, as in what the sun does to the earth. It's weird that, well, I mean, maybe some people like looking at gas giants. And I like looking out of the window when it's sunny and be like, oh, the world looks nice. I don't like being in it. I don't like it. I am a autumn, winter, and a push spring, as long as spring isn't now taking what summer used to be, because so I'm very much looking forward to being able to get cozy again and hear people moan about how cold it is and wondering why I'm not wearing my big coat. And that's because I'm northern. It takes more than a 8-degree day for me to wear a big coat. So that I'm very much enjoying. And also I'm really enjoying listening to I guess podcasts. It's weird. I have a very definite idea of what a podcast is in my head. So like,
yeah.
I'm very much enjoying listening to things that I have no vested interest in learning about, in the sense of like, I'm not researching anything. I'm not like anything like that. So I've been listening to a lot of John Ronson because I love that man so fucking much.
Ron Johnson.
John Ronson.
Ron Swanson.
No. People. Very, very, very different people. And for anyone that's not heard of John Ronson, he is an investigative journalist and author. He wrote The Men That Stare at Goats, the book that got turned into the film with George Clooney, The Psychopath Test, them Adventures with Extremists, So You've Been Publicly Shamed, John Ronson, Lost at Sea, and then there's loads of like smaller. So he has a podcast series. The reason I find it weird, because in my head a podcast is like someone hosting and talking about stuff, but it's almost like it's a documentary form, where it's called The Butterfly Effect, and the first season is all about the porn industry and how the guy that founded Pornhub essentially disrupted and fucked a lot of people, ironically, out of like a lot of money.
It was the Spotify of clapping cheeks.
And how it's like really like damaged a lot of people. So sorry, Dan's
I'm not happy with that. Just
well, I was about to say it stayed in, but that's not on me this week. So he takes one like small kind of decision or move and then like basically just tracks the ripples, the effects of it, like far reaching. So I listened to a lot of stuff from him, and then once I finished all of my library, all the free stuff, because I don't have any credits currently on Audible, I started listening to Stephen Fry's Victorian Secrets, and then I finished that, and I am listening to Stephen Fry's The Roaring 20 Secrets. I didn't realize there was an Edwardian Secrets. I've done it out of order and I'm a little bit annoyed at myself, but I shall be listening to that. So I have been just enjoying learning about stuff for no reason other than learning about it. That's what I
love that. I love that. And I apologize for anyone I may have offended with my comment. But I do see that one day on a t-shirt. It's something I've enjoyed.
I was just about to ask.
I'm going to keep it short just because I've kind of covered some of this anyway, but running, like, do I enjoy it when it's happening? Sometimes. Like, I will say the running routes near yours are considerably better than the running routes here, because where you are, there's like hills and forest and field. And one thing that I find, especially when I'm running, is it's really nice not to see how far you have to go.
Yeah.
where I live at the minute is right in the flatlands, and you can see
It
for
really
miles.
is.
So I can literally like leave the village and go, there's where I'm going, and see 3 miles out, and that is demoralizing. It's when you're running, you're just like, oh yeah, I can just see to the end of this street, and then I'm turning left, and then I'm doing whatever. Like, there's something mentally about like these tiny little checkpoints where it's like here, it's like begin your workout. But no, I'm enjoying that, and like I'm kind of mixing it up with other exercises as well, just to like increase what it's doing, because I really want to prepare my body for some bigger runs and things soon. I've got some cool ideas for some of those. And then the other thing, I've been playing around and building a lot of websites the last week, and speaking to some authors that people will know that I will not say until obviously I've got permission and the websites are done. But yeah, it's nice to not only like find a thing that I'm enjoying, that I feel like I'm good at, but also something that offers value to other people as well in quite a big way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my things. And now we're introducing a new segment.
Bam, bam, bam.
Sam, this was your idea. What's this new segment and why?
It's called Word of the Week.
Word of the Week.
Right. This came from the fact that last week, Dan came home one day and he was like, I've got a word and I want to fit it effortlessly and naturally into a sentence. And that word is taciturn, which is why I've been groaning every time he's freaking said it during the podcast. And then he proceeded to, without any kind of segue or organic nature involved, just keep saying it, often in a situation that made no fucking sense. And it caused...
You know, it's how taciturn I'm being right now.
You're smiling. You are not being taciturn.
Taciturn to mean uncommunicative or morose.
Yeah. So the fact that you said to me, do you know how taciturn I'm being right now, in itself is ridiculous. But anyway.
I'm learning.
But it caused much hilarity and amusement. So I thought it would be really cool if each week we take it in turns and we find a word that we've not heard of before, or that we've heard of and we pretended we know what it means and we didn't. And we challenge the other person to try to use good luck with this one. I cannot imagine you slipping this in organically in any conversation. No. And for them to report back the following week to see how they did. And also, I thought it would be fun, as we don't really have that many kind of like interactive, challengey things, at least at the moment, that if you, dear listener or viewer, wished to also take part in this little weekly challenge and then pop us a line on Instagram or on like the comments on the podcast and tell us how you did, because I think this is going to be quite amusing. It's very educational, but also trying to find a natural and organic way to say titty nope is going to be difficult.
Not titty nope.
Titty nope. And so titty nope is derived from the word tittle, which used to mean little. So it's not actually a rude word. Titty nope is a small quantity of something left over, specifically food or drink. So for example, oh God, I can't finish my dinner. There's a titty nope left of mash. There's a titty nope of mash. I just couldn't
titty nope of mash?
Yeah. I mean, that's ridiculous. I finished my mash first.
I mean, Luna is a titty note hoover.
She is. That doesn't count. It has to be... No, it can't be with me. That was a good practice.
Oh, okay. Titty nope.
Titty nope. Spelt Tittynope. Titty nope.
As you'd expect a titty nope to present itself.
I was looking through and I was like, that one.
Oh, okay. Titty nope. Right, gotcha. Challenge accepted. And interestingly, because we are recording this quite late in the week, that leaves us only a few days to try and make this happen between myself and you. But obviously, for people listening on the podcast, you all have said titty nope by next Monday.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Straight from that, we've got a titty nope of wins from the community. Doesn't I know
tiny amount of wins?
Yeah. But I picked a few out because
It's
there's
not a titty note.
not
Already.
no, because there's a bit of a theme, obviously, with some of the stuff that you've spoken about with your week last week, things that are going on with myself. One thing that I'm incredibly proud of is Activated Authors. When each week we post up a chance for everyone to share their wins from the week. Emmy B does an amazing job every week of making sure that people are sharing and shouting about the wonderful things that they're doing, because I don't think we ever really take enough time to reward ourselves for the good things, big or small.
Agreed.
One thing I love, and this isn't to knock other writing groups, but in other writing groups, I will see people immediately jump to word counts and to productivity and that kind of stuff, which is obviously, important. It has its place.
Absolutely.
But it's something that we kind of crushed out quite early on in our boot camps, because we would ask in those sprints how people have gotten on, and immediately the answer would be, I've done
987 words.
I'm like, yeah, but how are you?
Huh?
Because it's more about just the writing. And so this week I picked a few because it's the theme is basically self-care and people who are recognizing that they need to take that time to be productive. And so we got one from Emma Rose, who says, after a very busy time for the past 2 weeks leading up to the podcast release, because by the way, if you haven't checked out Emma on the Rebel Author, do go check that out. She does a wonderful job at talking about romance editing and all the things with the wonderful Sasha Black. So Emma, I spent my Saturday doing nothing and it was glorious.
Love it.
Kids, my win is self-care, because I really focused on not doing much and just getting a little bit done here and there. And then Ara, after a few weeks of low spurts from anxiety, I managed a weekly exercise goal.
I love that so much.
And there's plenty more of those, but just a select.
Because the thing is, I think people underestimate what that does to productivity. So if you are someone that is laser focused on being as productive as you possibly can be, you cannot be that without breaks. There's a quote, I'm sure I've said it before, butchered it before, I'm about
to do not, there is no try.
No, that's Yoda. You dickhead. No, it's in music as in life, it is the pauses that make the piece. Something like that. So basically, without the breaks, without the pauses, without the the lingering note, there's no music. It's just one long, obnoxious, fucking assault, as is life. If you don't take the pauses and the breaks that you need.
The pause is important as note.
No, that's not it.
No, that's Truman Fisher for people interested. Play the moments, pause the memory, stop the pain, rewind the happiness. What?
No. Are you trying to find this quote?
Yeah. The notes I handle no better than many pianists, but the pauses between the notes, that's where the art resides.
No.
Oh, well, you can find it and send it over. We'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, it's
maybe.
And I will say that the last few weeks, the last couple of months, in which I really have dropped a lot of things so I can focus on the personal stuff and focused as well on health things, I've weirdly been considerably more productive than I have for the last year. And I'm not putting pressure on that as a part of the process. I'm just enjoying it as it comes, doing the things. But yeah, proud of you guys. Keep it up. I love that you're sharing the things outside of the writing as well. Again, not to shame anyone that is sharing the writing stuff, because that's also awesome.
Yeah.
And also a very quick hello. I want to shout out to one of our new listeners and someone that dropped into Activated Authors just because they've been very, very active on the Discord community. And I just want to say hi. Hey, LJ, who writes Witchy Cozy Mystery and is working on their first book. Hello from Dan and Sam.
Hi,
LJ. And so now into this week's question. And the question isn't so much of a question. It's more
of a statement, really, isn't it?
But you could turn it into a question. And I because it's my turn this week, I wanted to basically discuss something that is incredibly powerful, but something that I know intimidates quite a lot of people. And that is harnessing the power of feedback. And so one thing that a lot of people struggle with when they're writing is trying to work out, did they done good?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And this kind of goes for every stage, but I will focus for a minute on people who are potentially new writers who haven't shared anything yet with their readers, who they're just closeted in the cupboard with their little typewriters underneath a flaming wicker candle, and they're trying to.
They're underneath the candle. Got you.
It's dripping wax on their heads. No. But for these people specifically who are terrified of sharing their work because they haven't shared it before. They want to write. They have this burning need to write, but then they're getting to a point now where they're like, I don't know if what I'm writing is good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things that is, well, like anything, it's a mindset thing, and it really is. But there's also a huge amount of emotional vulnerability that goes into sharing your first works.
Yeah.
And without getting hugely in depth on this side of it, it does come back again, I think, to like the school system and to the whole like notion of you can or you can't do something.
Yeah.
And the fixed mindset that gives us when we start writing, because like, you know, every writer who is currently writing stuff has been there, has gotten to a point in which they've gone like, it hurts more not to write than it does to write. And so you get to the page, you write something, and it's probably going to be bad because, you know, it's the first time you've written something. And when you've been writing, because I know quite a few people that have been writing for like a few years and they've never shared their work with people, which I'll caveat and say, if that's how you want to work, then fine. If you're not interested in showing your work to other people, then don't worry about it. But for those people that want to improve and get better and write things that people really, really love, you have to be able to embrace feedback. And feedback in its simplest form is information.
Mm-hmm.
I think the danger is tying up emotionality to what you're getting back, and it really is about switching a switch in your brain so that you can harden yourself to that. And there's a reason that people say thick skin, but I don't think it's thick skin. I just think it's a focused mind. Mm-hmm. And so how I view feedback, especially nowadays, is, as I say, information. If I've sent my thing to someone and they've said, you know, I really enjoyed this I didn't like, this doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. I really try to remove myself from that, because I know that what they're telling me, even if it seems negative, is useful.
Yeah.
And it is something that I can take on board, process, and it's a piece of information I wouldn't have been able to have myself just from sitting quietly in a room.
Agreed.
I have a few different angles to come at this at, but I'm going to stop there for a minute and open it up to you to...
Yeah, well, first of all, I completely agree with what you just said. I think fear of feedback comes from a few different places, especially if, like you say, you're starting and you've not really shared your work with anyone before. There's a romance to writing.
Mm-hmm.
There really is. Like, there's a romance in the idea of writing, and there is a romance on those days when you write, like, you know, the universe is whispering in your ear and you get in the flow and you're going. Now, obviously most days are not like that, and it can be like, you know, pulling teeth. Mm-hmm. But when it's just yours, it's like the beginning of a relationship. You're in this tiny little bubble and it's beautiful and it's exciting, it's kind of sexy, and like, you know, you love it. It's your thing. It's between your brain and the page, and like, it's amazing. And the second you mention to other people that you're doing it, that can, one or two things: either the bubble gets cozier because everyone's like, oh, you're clever, or like, you know, it starts to be that you, and that can interfere with it. But when you give someone your work, that bubble doesn't just pop, it evaporates. Mm-hmm. And suddenly you are thrust into a much colder place that isn't as sexy and as fun anymore, because, you know, even just waiting for that feedback can be extremely stressful. So I would say, don't beat yourself up about the fact that, you know, you want to stay in your little sexy bubble. Who wouldn't? But feedback is essential for anything, I think. You know, when you cook for your family or a mm-hmm. partner or whoever, and you give them the food, like, you want to hear that it's nice. But if, like, one of them says, oh God, there's a bit too much salt in it, you know, next time don't put as much salt in and it's going to get better. Mm-hmm. Unless you're my sister, in which case she has the best fucking line. She's like, I hope you enjoy it, but I don't need to hear about it if you don't, which I love, because she cooks for her family every single day. Like,
responsibility absolved.
Yeah, and she has a full-time job. You're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, like,
the feedback is in the titty notes.
Yeah. I love that. Yes. That's going on a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is essential and it is difficult, but I think we're all better at taking feedback than we think we are, because you have not got to the point you are in your life without hearing criticism or compliments,
whether correctly delivered or not.
yeah, like no matter how they have been like launched at you, like we have all heard like positive and negative things about ourselves, about the things that we do, about the person that we are. And you know, hopefully at this point you have developed at least some kind of filtering system to, you know, ignore the unnecessary and listen to the voices that are trying to help you. And I think that's important with feedback, is to understand what is useful and what isn't.
Yes. How do you filter
Because
that information?
you filter that information, I think, a couple of ways. So one, make sure you're giving your work to people that it's either for, or I think sometimes at the very, very beginning, like maybe before you're writing a novel or something for publication and you're just playing, someone that you like intimately trust, because it is so easy to crush somebody.
So quick one on that, because it really could have been it was a pivot point, really. Was the first ever short story that I wrote with the intention of thinking like, oh, let's try writing, because I wrote stories and things as part of college and university and things, because obviously like, you know, it's part of the syllabus, it's part of the curriculum. But when I think it was 23 or 24, I wrote a story, just a short piece for Writers Magazine. And it was my first real attempt again. Like, I'm going to write a short story. And it was a story about my granddad, who used to work in the fire brigade until he developed vertigo. And it was essentially a short snapshot about that. And so with that story, that 1,000 words printed out on paper in my hand, I plucked up the courage to show my mother, who is my grandfather's daughter. And I handed it to her thinking like, oh, this is gonna be like a really sweet moment, because I've written about this experience of a granddad and like, you know, all the writing, all that poetry, all that sort of romanticism. And I handed it to her, and I remember this distinctly because we were in a caravan at the time. And she read it, went, and handed it back to me. That could have been the end of it. There would be no activated authors, there would be no books published on the shelves, there wouldn't have been anything else. But I understand in that moment that maybe she's not the right audience. I don't know how I knew that, apart from, you know, things that I've done in the past, but like I was like, okay, maybe it's not for her. I can still keep going.
Yeah. And I think that's the other point, is do not tie your identity up in what others think. And that's just a lesson for life. Like, but what they think of your writing, I've just realized that I haven't finished the other point, but what they think of your writing does not reflect on your potential as a writer. Like don't tie your future like career up with one person's opinion of where you're currently at in a first draft or whatever, because like we'd never get anything done. So back to the thing you asked me, how do you know? So make sure you're, first of all, you're giving it to like the right people. And then the easiest way to say it is, a human knows how to communicate something in a way that is not going to devastate. So if someone like gives you feedback like, this character's fucking shit, don't listen to them. It has no merit. If someone says, I really don't like this character and here's why, that is criticism that you could take on board.
Constructive criticism.
Exactly. And I think the same goes the other way. If someone's like, I love everything about it, full stop, the end.
That's pointless.
That's nice, but it's not helpful at all.
It's an ego boost, but it does nothing to help.
Yeah, because like nothing is ever perfect. But there are some people perhaps that are going to read it and either not know how to broach the little bits that they didn't like, or not pick up on things maybe that other people have, but there's still a way they could be like, right, okay, I love everything about it. Here's the parts in particular that I enjoyed, and here's why.
Yeah.
Helpful, because even though they're not giving you anything that you could necessarily improve on in I wasn't a fan of this, you're at least seeing through their eyes the bits that really worked for them, and you can use that in your future works. Okay, they like this, so I can deconstruct that, and and that. So just first of all, give it to the right people, and secondly, just you use your gut. Honestly, like if someone is being either a sycophant or a psychopath, ignore what they're saying.
You don't have to accept everything. I think that's one of the powerful things that even editors, when you give your book to an editor and they'll go through and they'll make notes and stuff, we have to remember it's an opinion. It's an informed, educated opinion, and you should pay attention to the things that they're saying.
Absolutely.
But it's your book, so you don't have to implement everything they're saying. And this is something I've done with quite a lot of coaching clients, is we've worked through the feedback, and then the author has gone, okay, they've said this, but I don't quite disagree with this because this was intentional in order to make this point. And it's like, well, what are you going to do with that information? Because what you're being told in this moment is from one person, this isn't working in the way that you wanted it to. But on the other side, it's your book. So if you feel like it's valuable, go for it. My advice in that situation, either take that snapshot and give it to more people to get more information, because again, as you said, like one person's opinion isn't the be all and end all.
It's a singular data point.
Yeah. And the more information you can get, the better, because if you're intending to give your book to lots and lots of people, let's say, really optimistically, you get it out, top chart, smash bestseller, 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 people, those 20 people that you've given it to beforehand are going to help to inform that. And so it doesn't matter if you've given, like, the amount of stories that I give away for free to my beta readers, because I know how valuable it is that they give me that feedback, because although I've lost their sales in the sense of like, I know they're going to buy the book, but obviously I'm giving it to them for free. It means it's a stronger book, so that when people do get it, it does what I intended it to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is that we as humans have ego and pride. And I always find, much to my chagrin,
good word, nice,
thank you, that when somebody says something to me and it hurts, not because they have delivered an insult or because who it is that's saying it, but hurts because I fucking know it's true. That's when I'm like, ugh, I have to work on that. Or when I look at a couple of things, all of which I want to do, I'm like, right, which one scares me? That one, right? I guess that's what we're doing next.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to like become attached. People call it like, it's my baby. Like Liz Gilbert says, like, don't call it your baby, because like you're a horrible parent. You're selling your baby. Like, stop it. Yeah. Stop calling it your baby. And the problem is as well is that you become then too invested in it, and you can't see how it could improve because it's your child and your child is perfect.
Well, it's stages, isn't it? You've got to baby bird that baby. Like, yeah, that first draft, sure, maybe it can be a baby, but you've got to boot it out the nest.
Yeah. And then sell it. Traffic it.
Pick a pigeon. I don't.
And there's, I'm sure I've said this before because it's one of my favorite things that I learned as training as an actor, is there's always at least one person that has a reason, an excuse, or something for every single note the director gives them. Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah. Number one, please don't be that person. Number two, what I learned is shut the fuck up and take the note. You don't have to agree with it. Just listen. So when you are first getting that feedback, whether someone is verbally telling you or you are reading it in a document, do not respond to that person in a way that is like responding to their feedback. Nod, smile, if you can manage it, or just read through without stopping and like, whatever, just go through it and like take the hit on the chin and listen.
Yeah.
Then process, and then you can look at it more reasonably, because we all have our ego attached to anything that we create.
Of course we do. That's why we make art.
Right?
Because we think we're good enough to share it.
Exactly. I know I'm good enough to share it. I don't know what you talk about thinking. Some of our egos are bigger and more fragile than others. But it is really important to be able to just disconnect your like reflex response, your defense response, because remember, you've asked for this. And so if you've asked for this and then you're an arsehole to the person that has been kind enough to not only read your book, but that and not only give you helpful like feedback, which is then going to make you a better writer. If you turn around to that person and you're a dick, they're not going to do that again. And you've just lost a very valuable like person in your journey, because let me tell you, most people will either just not do it or not do it well and not be helpful. And it takes time to like get those people together.
Likely hours. Like a novel is a good 7 to 15 hours of reading.
Yeah. And that's if you're just writing like a standard size. Like if you've written like Eye of the World, which is like over 1,000 pages, like, you know, so just, remove yourself as much as you can from it. And if you struggle that, just remove your tongue from the equation. And do not respond, just nod and listen.
And coming back to the fixed versus growth mindset side of things, like I definitely have over the years adopted, and I use that word specifically, a growth mindset, which for people who are unfamiliar for any reason, fixed mindset, you basically believe that you are born with what you have, you are given the things you have in life, and therefore you are trapped inside your own circumstances. So I can't paint. I'll never be able to paint. Someone's told me I can't paint. I never will. Growth mindset is I can't do this right now, but I can try to learn, and I can give myself the grace to fail so that I can improve. And everything that I've done has started with me being like, I'm going to give this a go. And so when it comes to writing and getting feedback, my whole view is literally like, I don't argue with the editor. Like you say, like they're giving me information points, like you will never win. It's not your job to argue with an editor, to argue with someone giving feedback. But saying that and being fully transparent, I still do not enjoy the first moment when you get the feedback. And this is
not a fucking like sadomasochist.
No. And like, obviously I've done a lot to work on my mindset and stuff, but there's always that initial reaction when an editor sends stuff back through and you're reading through their comments and you just go, you're wrong. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. It was all intentional. You're wrong. And a perfect example of this is the book that I mentioned earlier that I'm putting up for pre-order, hopefully today, potentially tomorrow. When I gave that to people, I did get quite a bit of negative feedback. And the reason is, and this isn't sort of disclaimer side of stuff, and something else that is definitely worth noting, whatever you're writing, know what the intention of the piece is. Know what it is you want to achieve. Know who you're giving it to, coming back to giving it to the right reader, because the story that I've written is essentially Alice in Wonderland as told by H.P. Lovecraft. And so it's the wonderful...
Without the racism and sexism.
Without the racism, well, fine, I'll have to edit that. But
wow.
No racism, no sexism. But it's the story that everyone's familiar with of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but it's got a lot of Lovecraftian elements, elder gods, horror stuff. And
Tentacles.
Yeah, and I've specifically written it in the style of 1920s Lovecraft. So it is quite dense. It is quite purple. It is very much meant to feel like you're reading Lovecraft and not therefore typically my own writing. And the readers I gave this to, there was a real mix of opinion, because obviously people who are on my list love things like When Winter Comes and Sins of Smoke and Mark of the Damned and stuff that is my voice. And this is a specific effort to emulate someone for the purposes of it going on the podcast. And so some people didn't like it and didn't get on with it. And God bless them, they told me so in the nicest way possible. They were like, I couldn't get past the first chapter. It's just not for me. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. Like, I know this is going to divide some people. Some people were like, I absolutely loved this. Very different to usual stuff, but I really loved it. And so me being me and knowing what I want to do with that piece, it gives me a bit of, for want of a better word, armor. in being able to sort out the feedback that's useful versus the feedback that's not. And obviously, like, if it's not hitting certain readers because it doesn't sound like me, that's a reason I can get on board with. And I've assured them that I have more of my voice stuff coming out soon. But again, it's, you know, you couple the purpose with just allowing yourself to hear that feedback. As you said, giving it to the right people, making sure that it's not just going to mum, but, you know, people that read that genre, people that love that genre. And so one more thing I want to say before going on to another point that I do have is something to be very, very, very aware of early on in your writing. And this is very much to do with feedback and editing, is knowing the difference between writing and storytelling. Now, I've said this many times on this podcast. Readers will forgive bad writing if you have an amazing story.
Yeah.
You won't forgive a bad story if you've written it amazingly.
No.
So what that essentially means is, as long as the abstract core idea of what your story is resonates with the reader, as long as you have characters that are compelling, a world that people love, as long as there's enough tension and conflict and drive in the story to get people from point A to point C. I mean, it could be an indefinite letter.
Well, I just thought it was cute because it's a beginning, middle, and end.
But as long as you've got those core elements, that really, for me, that's the heart of what I'm after. Like, writing can be edited, writing can be shifted, writing can be manipulated. So maybe you're not grammatically the best writer, maybe you're not using all the big words, but if you've got a story that's amazing, and that really, when I'm giving people's first drafts of things, early works and stuff, like I'm collaborating with a few people at the minute and I'm getting early drafts, I'm looking for the heart of the story. I'm looking for the heart of what is being told in that book, the message, the principles, what it is that creates this abstract thing that outside of words is what the reader is going to remember. We get very bogged down early on in the writing. And arguably, I think, you know, there's a place for that because you want to improve how you're communicating your story. But know that criticism on your writing isn't necessarily going to help your story, and vice versa. And when I'm looking for feedback, what I generally say to people is I want to know which parts of the story work. Where you were gripped, where you put it down, the things.
Don't care about typos.
No, if you find a few typos, send them over. But that's really not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is, do you love the world that I'm creating?
Yeah.
And that's huge. And that's something that's probably a bit more difficult to master than the actual practicalities of, oh, I've missed a comma, or I put in an em dash, or whatever it is. So there really are two big differences or two lenses you can look at your writing. I think storytelling comes first. I think writing comes in the final edits. It's in conversations with Luke Condor where, you know, the first draft is messy, the second draft is you perfecting the story, and it's in the final edits that you then sprinkle in all the magic and the poetry and all that kind of stuff, because at that point the story is solid, and so you're just shaping how you're communicating that to the reader.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to kind of touch on is, how do you find the right people to give you feedback? You know, where do you begin to try and get those people in your corner? Because again, like it's a big problem that I hear from a lot of early authors is, as we said at the beginning, it's very emotional, it's very vulnerable. How do I cross that line to give people my writing to begin accruing feedback?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways. Number one, if you head on over to activatedauthors.com /
I wasn't even angling for that, but yeah, it works.
There is a entirely free Discord community where you can ask people if they would be willing to like swap with you.
And we have specific genre channels as well for people. So
exactly. Or if you've just got a smaller section that you want to, you know, you can ask it and throw it up and then that kind of thing. But I mean, really, all kind of self-pimp aside, finding a community of like-minded people, hopefully people that are at a similar place in their journey, and also that are writing in or around your genre. And I know that sounds like a tall order, because when I first started thinking about it, I was like, how the fuck do you do that? Well, I'm gonna whisper the secret. Are you ready? Google. Did you hear it? It's Google, right? Because if you type it into Google, It will come up with options. There are so many writing groups, there are so many writing communities, there are specific services where like you go, and Kiz was talking about one, right, where like
yes,
you enter, and it is specifically for getting critique, and the way it's set up is that you have to critique and read a couple of stories before you can even submit your own, so you know that when you put yours out there, people are actually going to be reading it. They're honestly, it feels, because it's like a brand new thing, it feels like a uncharted territory, but it isn't. Like, it's lousy with like communities and like editors and people that will help. So honest to God, just go to Google if you don't know where to start. I mean, again, great tip for life. Don't ask me, because I'm just going to Google it. But like, genuinely, if you're looking for more like one-on-one, you could find book coaches that will help you.
Yes.
Like, obviously, if you have that budget, because it's not cheap. If you're looking for just to dip your toe into a community, go to Google. There's loads of them. Like, Facebook has lots of them. Just what I would say with all of this, which is really important, is do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to be, as a brand new writer, I wouldn't recommend jumping into something like 20 books to 50k, because it's a very intimidating Facebook group. People are telling you a lot and loudly about how much money they've made on how many books and things.
Yeah.
And when you're,
I think it depends on your goal. If that's what you're after, then
well, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But like, if you're just starting out and you're looking for people to help you on your journey of words, on that very first thing, going to a really big place with lots of people that are incredibly successful, and a lot of you can find a lot of communities are more community is a word that is loosely applied to some of these places, because a lot of them are people wanting to tell you about themselves. Like, it's like they've opened the door and gone, I'm amazing, and then they shut the door, and then they'll come back out again and be like, this is why, and then they're gone again. So like, do your due diligence, hang around, do a little lurk, and just kind of see what the vibe is. And does it take time? Yeah. But is it worth it? Absolutely. If you're serious about like wanting to improve your writing, your storytelling, your connections, your friends, it's kind of the only way to go, really, because you need to surround yourself with people the best you can, whether that's virtually or in person, that understands what it is you're going through and can like help and guide you, as then you can in return help and guide them or other people to places and resources that can help. Like, at the end of the day, we are creatives, and at the heart of that is wanting to like share, wanting to tell stories, whether like through whatever medium. Obviously this podcast is specifically about writing, so we're wanting to share stories through novels or poems or short stories, whatever that is. So like, embrace that legacy and share, and like help others to do the same. And you'll find that by being like that, you will find a place for yourself, and you'll be welcomed there, because it, we said this, I think, on the first podcast, storytelling goes back to the dawn of humanity, and we're just carrying that tradition on with like the resources and knowledge and everything and language that we have today. And there's something beautiful about that. And while we might not be saving lives in the strictest of sense, we're certainly like giving people reasons to live, because what is the world without art? I've gone very
high concept there.
But
I mean, just a couple of points to round off. I agree with everything you said. A couple of additional points. You are already a writer, bouncing off the back of the storyteller side of things. When handing over your work for feedback, know that you're not asking for permission to be a writer. You already are a writer, and to be a writer is to practice. It is a lifelong practice. Like, I never sit here and accept that I know all the things. And even though I'm currently writing a book on how to write a book, even in the book, I'm like, there's still shit tons that I don't know, but here's what I do know, and hopefully that's helpful. So really, like, if you've chosen to write or to experiment with this, you're already a writer. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a great writer or a poor writer, you are a writer, and a writer practices the process of writing. That's flat out as simple as it is. When looking for feedback for people, just a small note to be aware of: there's a difference in giving your work to readers versus writers.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to writing critique groups and all that kind of stuff, it's fantastic. It's very useful. Know that obviously writers, we look behind the curtains and we study what's under the bonnet of the car. We look for the dolphin sprockets. Readers watch car go boom and just drive by. So they just want the car to look pretty when it's driving. So get a mix of both of those. It will benefit you greatly. And the other thing is, just in the sense of building up a team of beta readers at any stage, I might add, like, even if you're new to writing, you can still get beta readers, because there'll be people out there enthralled by the opportunity to be able to help a writer publish work. My process with beta readers, as with writing, as with everything else, it's constantly evolving. It's iterative. Every time I release a new book, I put a call out for my mailing list for new readers. Maybe you don't have a mailing list yet, but there are ways to build those that we can do in a separate episode. But I generally will give my book to about 40 to 50 different people, knowing that I'll probably get about 15 to 20 people return. The people that don't reply, I then remove from my list. And the next call out, I make a note of the people not to add, and I add the people that are giving me that good feedback. So again, like, it's a never ending process of trimming those that aren't doing what they say they're going to do, finding people that give the useful feedback, particularly creating a rapport with people who know my work and what I do. It's a slow process. Like, I've been in this nearly 10 years, and again, it's still growing. It's still a thing that I work on. But beta readers is a great place to start. And I'll put a couple of small resources down in the show notes so that people can go to certain places to find out more about this. But I will say, as a starting point, and again, not just because you pimped it out, but Activated Authors, it's free. You can jump in, get involved in the conversations. No one's there to judge you. As we said at the beginning of this episode, everything that we're building in Activated Authors is based off of us as people and the values that we hold. And so anything you see on the podcast, this is who we are, this is how we are inside the group. And if you are listening to this and you're finding lots of value, then give it a try. It's free. You're not going to lose out on anything.
Sorry, I was just laughing because you said we're the same, and I was just thinking about how many sprints and things I end up rambling monologues and like innuendos.
Exactly like on this podcast.
Yeah.
So we'll cap it off there. I'm not sure if you guys can hear the dogs, but apparently
I can hear them.
Apparently,
so they can hear them.
Someone's pulled up on the driveway. Fuck them.
Yeah,
and so we'll say feedback is a very, very powerful thing, and it's something that you cannot get better at. You cannot get better with your writing if you don't get feedback from multiple different sources. It's hard to try and find the right people, but you can find the right people, and there are a million resources out there to do so. So if you have any questions, jump on over into Discord, let us know. And just a reminder of this week's word, Sam.
Titty nope.
Titty nope. So if you can somehow incorporate titty nope into your lexicon for this week, and I would stress bonus points for people who can put it in a sentence that don't get questioned on what titty nope means.
Absolutely.
Which I don't have high hopes for me.
No.
Judging by the people that I'll be saying it around.
I know. I can see them.
We can't say it to each other, Sam. That's cheating. Just putting it out there.
Yeah. That is cheating, yeah.
Yeah, this week's word of the week is titty nope. Let us know how you get on in Discord, on all the social medias. Just tag us at Activated Authors. Use hashtag Activated Authors as well. And just a final reminder to jump into the Discord community or download any of our free resources from activatedauthors.com. So, there's nothing else to say other than a massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to
activatedauthors.com/join
to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else we've got going on. One more time from myself and from Sam, we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Activate your energy.
Thanks for listening to the Activated Authors podcast. If you're ready to unlock your true potential and activate your author career, then head on over to www.activatedauthors.com to find out more.